Love this podcast? Support us by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Hit the link in the episode description to support us now. Thanks for listening and enjoy. Yo, Nicole.
What's up, Rolando?
Age-old question, tale as old as time. Which big monster are you rooting for? King Bowser or Donkey Kong?
Donkey Kong all the way.
Really? Not Bowser? Bowser's so cool. But I got my monsters mixed up. We're not talking about Donkey Kong or King Bowser. We are talking about King Kong and Godzilla. Now, who are you rooting for?
Oh, I have a clear winner here, and I actually want to see if you could guess it.
Are you rooting for King Kong?
No.
Oh, Godzilla?
100%.
Interesting. Okay. Eddie, who's yours?
Godzilla.
And why Godzilla?
I don't know. It's always been my fan favorite.
Oh, okay. So you guys are Japophiles is what I'm taking away. And I am the only one who is here for American sovereignty, and I'm going with King Kong.
Yeah, well, that's actually kind of problematic since, you know, we all know what King Kong is.
Well,
An allegory for...
We do know what...
But we'll get into that
yeah.
in a second. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Rolando.
And this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals.
An original podcast
about
unoriginality.
This has been a really big blockbuster. I think it's probably the biggest so far in 2021. People are going back to the movie theaters to watch this movie. Did you guys watch it at home or did you go to the theater?
I'm now paying for movies unless I absolutely have to, and this one is available on HBO Max.
Yeah.
And as a result, I'm just going to be like, well, I'm staying home and watching it. And you know what? Hollywood is probably listening, and they're being like, oh, no, this was a mistake. Why did we do this year?
Yeah, if you're paying for a subscription monthly for HBO Max, then why would you pay just to watch what you could watch for free at a theater for like $20?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much a movie ticket costs these days. I'm assuming it went up.
I'm guessing probably $15 easily.
Easily. Right? And then popcorn, it's just no. So yeah, so I watched it at home too. And I'm once again, I'm just glad that I didn't waste too much money on the experience. But that's also because I'm poor. Of course, if we're gonna talk about Godzilla versus Kong, we have to talk about the history of these movies, right? Because, is this a remake, reboot, revival? This is kind of a sequel. Well, yeah, it's a sequel that's based on a rebooted franchise of two separate prolific entities.
And
King
technically
Kong
kind of,
and
I guess, is a
Godzilla.
remake because this, as I come to learn,
yes.
these monsters have fought before. So
They have. This is not their first rodeo. So
so.
But yeah, so I think that this is just, for me, I kind of hopped on the chance to talk about the original monster movies, you know, set up the circumstances when we first met these monsters, when they were created, why they were created, and then pitting them against each other. So we're going to talk about the first film of the bunch to come out, which was King Kong from 1933.
Correct.
Then we're going to go 21 years into the future, talk about Godzilla from 1954. Then from there, we're going to talk about 1962's King Kong versus Godzilla.
Ugh.
And then last but not least, we are not going to talk about Kong Skull Island. We didn't do the podcast back then, so we can't talk about the films that came out like right before the podcast came out.
Yeah.
We were going to do a two-parter, but then we were like, let's just do one episode. And
I'll be right up front. I'm not a fan of kaiju movies. I'm not a fan of big monster movies. I don't care. Never have, probably never will.
Yeah. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing, you know?
It is not my thing whatsoever.
So, and I respect that. And then lastly, yes, we will end it with this Godzilla vs. Kong 2021 movie. I just want to say right off the bat, King Kong was made in 1933. That is a pre-code Hollywood film. And Godzilla was made in Japan in the 50s. These are two of my absolute favorite time periods for cinema. I love American cinema.
Why?
I love pre-code American cinema, right? And we talked about the code before on this podcast. In 1934, it really went into enactment. But, you know, Hollywood was just such a scandalous place, you know, with the fatty R, but like people, just so many scandals, you know, rape allegations, murders, all these things going on, that they were like, somebody needs to put a lid on Hollywood. They made the code and said, you can only depict this, and that. You can't show this, you can't show that. Like really, really strong censorship that happened to Hollywood. and that lasted into the 60s, right? So this is one of the last films that was made before that came into full that was like enacted down on Hollywood pretty much.
Yeah. And what a last film, right? What a way to end an era.
Films from 1927 to 1933 in Hollywood are just such a surprise, such a delight, and way more modern than you would think of a film. Because, you know, sometimes people look at old Hollywood and like, this is tame. Why aren't they kissing? You know, where are gay people? Where all this stuff?
Yeah.
And it's like, the code, guys, the code. Then also, I just want to say that I love Japanese cinema. And I think that, you know, how like a lot of people love American cinema of the 70s because of what was happening in the country and all this stuff. Japanese cinema of the 1950s, you know, kind of like the immediate aftermath of the bombings and them rebuilding Japan is some of the most insightful, heartbreaking, and just overall wonderful films that anyone would ever see came out of Japan in the 1950s. Seven Samurai, Tokyo Story, Ikiru, which I think you saw.
I have seen, yes.
Yeah. Sanchu the Bailiff. I mean, these are just some of the films that I can think of that have, for me at least, been life-changing, wonderful cinematic experiences. And I would even put Godzilla on one of them because I think Godzilla is way more profound than people are led to believe. So,
well, Americans are led to believe.
Americans. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Even in Japan, though, I mean, first of all, it's been rebooted like 6 times. There's just so many movies. Godzilla has kind of lost why it happened, you know.
Correct.
We'll get into that in a second. But yeah, so I just want to state off the bat that I'm really biased towards these films in terms of I'm very endeared towards them.
You don't say.
Yeah, so, you know, if you didn't see that coming a mile away. But you would think that I would like the 2021 film because of these, and I didn't. But we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, I mean, that's the power of Hollywood storytelling from 1933. You're limited by what you can physically do, right? So you have to work around those limitations. It's a black and white movie, and how do they achieve a monster that's supposed to be like gigantic? You know, they use a mix of mostly stop motion, right? It wasn't even like a man in a costume, right?
Yeah, no, it was that. Yeah,
It was both.
It was mainly stop motion. I don't think there was anyone in a costume.
Oh, see, so no one even in a costume could have fooled me. And I think that one, the black and white, works to great effect. I think also Godzilla, considering this is the first, I've just seen it for the first time because I will admit this, I never cared for Godzilla because I just thought it was just like, you know, monsters fighting. That's all I grew up with, right?
Yeah.
Not even rewatching, just watching the Godzilla, I'm just like, oh, this is like a really good movie. This is a beautiful movie. This is kind of a tragedy.
Yeah, 100% is a tragedy. I think Godzilla comes more from that than King Kong does. So let's talk about both films, you know, briefly, because I feel like everyone knows at least the legend. But, you know, let's shed a little light on some things that you might have forgotten, you know, because of these characters being brought up again and again just to do things like fight and, you know, bring chaos. So 1933's King Kong pretty much tells the story of a huge, emphasis on huge, gorilla who we call Kong. And these people come to this island in order to monetize him, to bring him back to the States and, you know, pretty much make a business out of him. They use him and they exploit him.
Is he a gorilla or is he an ape?
I think he's a gorilla.
I forget what the difference is.
Yeah, there is. I'm not.
He's a simian of some sorts. That's what we can all agree on. A primate.
He is the 8th wonder of the world. Carl Denham is a filmmaker who wants to make a film with this, like he wants to make an authentic film. So he gets this whole crew, and among them is First Mate Jack Driscoll and the woman that he brings with him, who her name is Ann Darrow, we learn is pretty much bait. Even though she's the star of the movie, she's also pretty much bait for Kong. Right. And it's a very simple story. You know, there's them on the boat going to Kong. There's their time at Skull Island. And then there's when they come back. And what happens when they bring Kong to the States and they try to exploit him, monetize him, and how just poorly it goes. Everyone knows Kong on the Empire State Building, right?
Of course.
It's just such an iconic scene. Of course, he was doomed from the beginning. Just something like that was never meant to succeed. He falls to his death, and they have the famous last lines of the film. You know, it was beauty that killed the beast. Because also one of the most famous parts of this movie is that Kong is actually quite affectionate towards Ann Darrow. He looks at her as his pet. and he wants to take care of her. Something that they expand upon in the 2005 remake, which they didn't in this film, right? And Darrow's just fucking petrified of him the whole time.
You're right.
She is not, and she doesn't want to be his pet. She doesn't look at him as anything as a huge beast.
Yes, very much a damsel in distress.
Yes, but also a great screamer, man. Faye Ray as Ann Darrow screaming her ass off. The girl can scream.
Mm-hmm.
Like, more power to her in that way. Anyway, so that's the plot of this movie. In 2021, almost 100 years later, while looking at the plot, a lot of people have kind of seen a lot of similarities in the story of Kong to the plight of African Americans in this country, right? That's something that Inglourious Bastards harped on in their joke when they were playing the game, and they're like, am I the plight of the slave in America? Oh, then I'm King Kong. Like, the similarities are just so strong that a lot of people have realized this. Was that something that you thought of when you watched this film?
Well, when I watched this film for the first time, I was like a kid still.
Yeah.
So, I mean, racism, I guess, maybe was a subject that I had seen on TV, like probably on Family Matters.
Mm-hmm.
When Carl confronted that racist cop. We all remember that moment. Anyway,
Yeah.
but in terms, I don't think the racism of the film it didn't sting me when I first saw this movie. I was more just captivated by it's just like, oh look, it's the monkey just running a rampage in the city, fighting that dinosaur, right? I think that's the most iconic scene. Everyone remembers the Empire State Building, but the dinosaur fight, I think for me was what made
the fights on the island are so impressive. First of all, and just like such a crazy world. Like, what the hell lives on this island?
Right.
Yeah, me too. Growing up, I mean, I always just thought that this was a really entertaining, action-packed movie. I still think to this day this movie is very well paced. Everything, like, the story moves along, the action moves along. It's only like an hour and a half, a little longer probably. But
no, I think an hour and a half is right.
Yeah, okay. But yet it feels so fast, and it's such a ride. However, when you look at it in that way, I think that the film is kind of ignorant to that. I think it's more so like addressing something that it's subconsciously referring to. Like, I don't think the film was any bit aware of that, especially when you like see that the way that they depicted the indigenous people, the natives to the island and stuff. It's just definitely like ignoramus all around.
Right. I mean, this movie is a product of its time.
It's a product of its time, yeah.
You definitely do have to take things like this with not a grain of salt, but you have to just like, this is just the way the mentality was back then, and we just gotta take it for that.
But they were at least smart enough to somewhat humanize Kong. I mean, it would have been way more successful had Ann Darrow maybe responded to him, or somebody there responded to him. Nobody really kind of took pity on Kong, so you never got to sympathize with the character. Like, you never got to have that resonating moment with the character. However, they gave him humanizing qualities, like the way that he felt protective over this girl.
Interesting. So it was, for me, this movie in particular, he was the least humanized, I think, in this film.
I mean, of course, compared to the later films.
I think also the filmmaker has spoken to this, right? That he wanted Kong to be more animalistic than I don't think he would have been down for Peter Jackson's version.
Oh no, I don't think
Kong.
so either. And I actually think Peter Jackson's version, nice in some ways, made him a little too much of like
human.
A dog or something, or a human or something.
I think it made him too human. Like, I think it made us like try to empathize too much with him, right? Because I think part of the appeal for King Kong is that he's a monster. He's not a monster. He's just a beast.
He is a beast,
and I don't think him being protective of Anne made him humanistic. I think that just made him like a dog is with a ball. You know what I mean? Like, it's a toy. This is how they just act.
Yeah.
We don't see like love like we saw in Peter Jackson.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean,
right.
Well, that's the thing. To me, at least, it's a good balance of completely animalistic, completely beast, completely just like, oh, that's an animal. That's a wild, untamed thing. But then he shows these traits. Like, he's not completely consumed by his own, animalistic traits or whatever. He actually has compassion within him. Of course, he's not able to ever really act on that or have that ability to, expand on that with any character. So I also think in that way, he's never ever able to show us more
Mhm.
It was just kind of like, for me at least, the right blend. I also felt like the movie was like pretty tragic in a way that it didn't mean to be. Like, it's tragic for like a person looking at it 90 years from now, like especially when he's tied up and people are like, the way that like he's displayed when he comes to New York.
Is that the
and
tragedy
stuff.
for you?
For
Not
me,
when he
that is
dies?
a tragedy. Well, the whole story is a tragedy. It's also a tragedy of how, we take animals and such for granted and how we treat them, and like as a person who for some time was a vegetarian and whatnot, I'm just not okay with like violence towards animals. I'm more so like, you could kill all the people you want, but the moment you fucking hurt an animal, I'm turning this movie off.
Oh my God, you're like Britta from Community. She can excuse racism, but she draws a line at animal abuse.
I do, because it's also like, one, pick on someone your own size, but that's like,
No, you don't want to excuse racism.
I don't want to excuse anything. I'm talking more so about animal
Set you up.
abuse.
He set you up.
He did.
I did.
He
I'm
did.
sorry.
Don't change the subject on me. Yeah, pick on someone your own size. Pick on someone your own fucking species. It's just an easy target. And like, what a
Well,
shitty
King Kong is
fucking
like-
person to
like
abuse animals.
100 times our size, though.
It doesn't matter. They're the ones who came asking for trouble. He was totally fine on
That's
his
true.
own
The natives,
there.
the natives are doing just fine with him on the island for a long time.
Mm-hmm. They're just like, all right, we have to make sacrifices every once in a while.
Like, no
happens.
big deal.
Anyway, so I think so much works about the movies. I think the music by Max Steiner is fantastic. It's just such impressive special effects for back
Which I
in
think
the
was also
day.
the first film to have like a full like orchestrated soundtrack also, right?
Yeah. It was definitely I think
Yeah.
it's just so many things that worked for it. And the plot that, has been retold and rescripted. We did a special episode of an animated remake on this film.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that
Yeah.
one.
I go back to listen to us review The Mighty Kong, which is now available on Blu-ray. And yeah, it's again a tale as old as time, which is fitting, being that it ends with that "beauty killed the beast" remark.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's a fun American film for sure.
It is a fun I think it's also, I don't know, it also, from my understanding, at least what I learned in like, this is not even like film school, this is like actual college. Like, this is like a historically important film when it comes to filmmaking. We wouldn't have probably like a lot of these like monster stories if not for Kong.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, he was very successful. Although I would give more so the credit to Godzilla, to be honest.
Well,
But,
Godzilla brought in a new craze, yes.
Yeah, he definitely was like when everything exploded,
But I feel
especially in
like
Japan.
just storytelling, the way we were able to tell stories like back then, like, I don't know. I feel like the power of Kong clearly transcends just time, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to be deeper.
That's a big
than
statement. Yeah.
I think so. It is, because there is a reason. I mean, this is a movie. Like, let's say you're like the 1% of the world population that doesn't know King Kong. It has proliferated though through pop culture in such a way that like, but you know it. Like,
Yeah.
you have absorbed this movie, if not by watching it, by just simply being in pop culture. You know what I mean? Like, I know only one person who might be the exception to that rule, because he watches no TV or movies, and
Ramon.
Ramon. Exactly. So that would be the one exception, but I don't know. I feel like this movie, for that reason, yeah, I think this is like a movie that everyone, when you say King Kong, and I wonder though, if people, because I instantly think of the black and white movie, I wonder if they think of the Jessica Lange version, which I think is just like not. I mean, poor Jessica Lange, how she had a career after that, because this is not her finest acting,
Yeah, the 70s remake was I mean, people from then know it, but it's not like that. Like, people were like, "Oh, it's so much better than the original." People forgot it existed, essentially.
No one says that.
Yeah,
you know?
no one. And I think,
nor has anyone said that about the Peter Jackson one.
I was gonna say, I think Peter Jackson is on the fast track to that. These people think that these movies need improving, and no, they're fine the way that they are, and they held their place in pop culture the way that they are.
Well, I think the filmmakers miss the mark on what makes King Kong so epic. They really end up focusing on the connection between. So I think the problem these movies aren't as successful as the original is because they focus on trying to humanize Kong, because they assume that that's what's going to make us connect with Kong. But I think keeping him just a plain old animal is fine, because like the American population loves an animal, right?
Yeah.
Got you know, if you kill an elephant, you're like a sinner for life in the eyes of the American. No
Yeah, well,
redemption
don't
for
fucking
you.
kill an elephant. Why would you kill an
Thomas
elephant?
Edison?
Thomas Edison,
Yeah,
precisely.
Topsy. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, why? Just leave animals alone. Like, if you want to be left alone, leave other creatures alone. Like,
Well,
anyway.
I have a question for you. Why can't the sea monsters leave us alone? Huh?
Well, why did the sea monsters come to existence?
Well, a fair rebuttal.
So let's talk about Godzilla, right? 1954, the same year that Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa came out, and
I
the
didn't
same
even
year
know
that
that.
Sanshou the Beowulf by Kenji Mizoguchi came out. I forgot the Ozu film. I mean, this is a prolific year for Japanese cinema. Actually, Takisha Shimura, who's the main samurai, he's like the main samurai in Seven Samurai, is in this film, is in Godzilla.
Who was he in Godzilla?
He was the doctor.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Godzilla came out 1954.
Everyone, yeah, just so you know, this is like fresh in my memory because I literally just saw this.
You
movie
just
for this
finished
podcast.
it? Okay.
I had never seen the original Godzilla. I may have actually seen the American edited version of
With
this
Raymond
Godzilla
Burr?
movie.
Yeah.
Is that the guy who was
Perry
was
Mason? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Look at that. It all goes around full
It
circle.
really
Our
does,
podcast.
yeah.
I think I have seen that one, and obviously I've seen like the color versions of Godzilla.
Yeah,
and
it's just so ridiculous that movie was even made. That they're like, oh, we should bring this movie to America, but we need an American in there, so let's just
no.
superimpose you into Tokyo, Japan.
That doesn't. You don't think that makes sense? Of course, Americans aren't going to, because American audiences at the time could not probably wrap their heads around
So not true.
having.
You don't think anyone in America saw Seven Samurai the year it came out?
I don't think so. Actually, no.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Then how
I
did that
think
film? How did people watch that film? How did it become so internationally wide known?
Elitists.
I mean, if you're talking about the American public, like
I'm talking about the
everybody-
American public. Yes, I'm not talking about people in the film industry. I'm not talking about cinephiles. I am talking about the good old fashioned American. I eat popcorn in my movie theater American. Who, let's be real, and I am not disparaging that population, because even though I'm a filmmaker, wholeheartedly put myself in that category more so, because I do enjoy making films. I wanted to make films to entertain, like just popcorn flicks. I didn't want to make art. That's my prerogative. You know?
I mean, okay, yeah. I think that this is now going to get into a question of, well, what is quote unquote art when it comes to cinema, and why can't they be both? Why is Seven Samurai? And this is not a question for you to answer. This is more a question for our society to answer in terms of, well, why is Seven Samurai quote unquote art from cinema? Why? Because it's a Japanese movie.
That's
it's
a great question.
Incredibly entertaining.
You're right. I think it is, but I also think that Americans aren't going to connect with Asian characters. Then that is just the bias of the American. Why do you think it was remade? Oh, wait, no. Was it a remake?
It was
I
remade
forgot
as a
already.
Western.
Yes, thank you. So it was remade
for The Magnificent Seven in 1960, about 6 years later. But that's also just because movies get remade, right?
It got remade. I feel like the reason it got remade
and retooled into. Well, I'm so glad that they made it as a Western and didn't tell a samurai story with a bunch of white people in it. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like American, like people who are listening to this episode, I really actually want to hear your opinion. Like, is Rolando being honest, or is he overestimating us?
Yeah, and I also feel like we have a smart audience. I feel like, so you ask your dummy friends. It's just like,
of course, I can't speak to what people were watching in 1950. Well, I mean, 1954. This is the year that On the Waterfront came out with Marlon Brando, right? That's the film that won Best Picture that year. A Star Is Born with Judy Garland. These are some of the films that people were watching. So
I mean, yeah. And I'm just
more
gonna say
diverse
this.
than what we're watching currently.
This is true, but I will say this though. Watching this movie and just doing my research on it, like the American version also stripped away all of that nuclear.
Of course, because they were responsible for it. So
I'm well aware. So I mean,
Yeah.
why do you think that is though? Why do you think this is why they added Raymond Burr?
I guess I would agree with you in the sense where the Raymond Burr version is just a perfect example of American ignorance.
Yeah.
And also
we got
just
got right into it hot, so maybe we should talk a
telling
little more
our
about
story.
the film.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about it. Directed by Ishiro Honda, who went on to direct a lot of kaiju films. This is probably the first kaiju film. It was distributed by Toho Studios, which is also famous for the fact that they are the studio that makes the kaiju movies. Godzilla. This is a film that pretty much deals with the sudden appearance of a giant sea creature monster. And it just so happens that his characteristics seem to be in line with nuclear war, right? His breath. It's pretty much nuclear breath.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna...
he was created as a result of nuclear testing.
Yes, he was. So pretty
And
much,
that is-
yeah.
Yeah.
There is a freighter. There's a freighter, sorry, on near Odo Island, and that is where we first meet Godzilla. So pretty much he is born because of the nuclear test that they are doing with hydrogen bombs and stuff in the water, right? So he is a
Right.
direct product of war.
And he is here to punish us. He is our payment. He's nature's payback
He is,
for
yeah.
creating the nuclear bomb.
Yeah, so you're going to test your hydrogen bombs in the water, well, then you're going to create a sea monster, and you have to deal with that. And yeah, and all of these villages are feeling that they're getting attacks and nobody knows what's happening, and all of a sudden it's there. And it's just them dealing with, oh my God, how do we deal with this? Especially because we're responsible for it. He's made out of the things that we're creating weapons on. So how do we counteract this, right? And
Correct.
it's a awfully, it's off. It's almost as if it's like, it's so filled with like actual fears and
Oh, yeah.
anxieties of that day and age that it's so interesting because it's also like you could see that this is a bombing film.
Oh, no, yeah.
And
I mean,
the bombings of Hiroshima and
Uh-huh.
Nagasaki that devastated the country of Japan. That's what I'm referring to when I say that. I just wanted to be
Right.
clear in case anyone didn't know.
I think the whole world
I would
knows
hope
that
so.
there
But,
were only 2 cities in the entire entire world history
In the entire
that
world.
have been ever bombed with atomic weapons in that. Yes.
Yeah.
And by Americans, and I think that's the thing. That is the sad fact that, like, I feel like even us as Americans, we still have not taken full responsibility.
No, people
for
think that
those
we
sins.
needed to do that in order for them to end the war. And it's just, I'm going to say it right now. I don't care what the fuck. There's no way you can justify those acts, and I'll
Well,
leave it
there's a
at
lot of
that.
evidence that is showing now more and more. It's just like we didn't need to. It was more of a show of power, a show of strength.
Yeah, no, it was, well, that's what America does, right? We're
Right.
the fucking Roman Empire of the world. So we do a
Let's
lot
hope
of
not, because
unnecessary shit just to
it
maintain
didn't go well
power.
for the Roman Empire, But in terms of the nuclear, the fallout of the nuclear war,
Yeah.
or our fears of nuclear war, right? I mean, even the design, the dinosaur, the Godzilla, has like all the makings of like those nuclear holocaust fears. I learned this. His skin isn't like scaly; it's textured to look like the scars that were left behind from the bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah.
And his head is the shape of a mushroom cloud.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, see? And this was all intentional. And by the way, this movie looks phenomenal in black and white.
Yeah. Oh my
I'm
gosh,
used
that's
to so I'm used to
breathtaking.
the color. Yeah, I'm used to the color Godzilla, which I think makes it obvious that it's just a guy in a suit.
Mm-hmm.
Where in black and white, that looks like genuinely good still, even to this day. Black and white works for this movie.
Yeah. They restored this recently. The Criterion Collection did a beautiful restoration of this film.
Yeah, I think that's one that's available on HBO Max.
Yeah, it should be. I
Yeah.
think it should be, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. That's the one I was watching because it wasn't dubbed. It didn't have Raymond Burr in it. It was the original version with the original soundtrack, right? Like the original, like not the American, because the American version, I remember, had too much music.
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
The American,
But-
Don't watch the Raymond Burr one, guys. I mean, watch it for kitsch value, but if you want to see
That's
a
the
good
one-
film, watch the...
Godzilla, King of Monsters. Yeah.
Yeah, so don't watch
That's
that.
the
Watch 1954 is just Godzilla.
And the other thing about this movie, though, that is not beautiful, it's kind of heartbreaking, but like the real focus is on the people and their plight.
Yeah.
Right? Which even by today's standards, when it comes to like action movies, like we don't get that. When the Avengers
We
are
don't.
out there saving the day, we don't see the consequences of their fights. Same thing goes with Superman, which we'll be covering soon, I think, right? Yet again. when Superman was fighting Zod in Man of Steel, like we didn't see any of those people dying. They were implied died, but like we don't get to see it.
No,
Here
for
in this
sure.
movie, you see all that violence up front and center. We see the toll that Godzilla has taken on these people.
Yeah, this film, the message of this film too is the devastations and the horrors of war and what that does to people, what that does to a nation, right? So that's why this film is so impactful, because you really do get this distraught feeling of, like I said before, fear and anxiety. But overall, I would say the main word that I'm looking for is devastation.
Mm-hmm.
And the film does end with a warning. Actually, no, Takashi Shimura's character, I don't think he died. He's the one who gives the warning at the end, where he's like, if we continue with our weapons, if we continue down this path,
there might be another Godzilla.
Yeah, this will just happen again. Which is
Right.
also a foreboding warner of war. And you know that Japan denounced its right to declare war. The Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution is a clause outlawing war as a means to settle international dispute involving the state.
Oh, okay, interesting. All right.
Because
Good
war
for them.
doesn't get you anywhere except devastation.
All right. I mean,
All right, so Godzilla 1954. It was such a powerful film, and it sucks to think that that's where it came from, because this is also the film that sparked an entire film series that has nothing to do with the original film, where that film came from. Maybe the first couple of films. And
they didn't touch upon, like, that's why I never cared for them, right? They were just like monsters fighting. I mean, don't get me wrong, I watched them because like I enjoyed watching the monsters fight, and I used to collect the toys, but I didn't care for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't like Godzilla until I was much older and stuff. I wasn't one of those kids, and by the time I saw it, I was like, oh, this movie actually has something to say.
Oh, my favorite toy was King Ghidorah and Space Godzilla.
Ghidorah. Oh, Ghidorah is pretty cool. Actually, one of the first times I saw anything Godzilla-ish was the South Park episode, Mega Streisand.
Oh.
But so anyway, Godzilla, it came out, Godzilla Came the Monsters, and then they did a film right after it called Godzilla Raids Again. And then they actually didn't do a film until 1962's King Kong versus Godzilla. And that is what sparked the whole monster movie era, right? So after that, we got Mothra versus Godzilla. We got Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, the Astro Monster, Abira, right? We got all these different guys.
Space Godzilla.
Megalon,
Mechagodzilla.
Hedorah, Mechagodzilla. Yeah, it's just pretty crazy.
But
But
Ghidorah.
the first one is King Kong versus Godzilla. So you know how at the end of Godzilla in 1954, they were like, hey, if we don't stop, he's going to be back. Well, guess what? They didn't stop, and he's back. 8 years
Was it the same
later.
Godzilla or was it someone else? Because this one came out of like a block of ice.
Okay, so how did the original Godzilla end?
He died. He died with the doctor who created that bomb that atomizes oxygen.
Yeah, I guess technically then they say Godzilla, but it really could be just like a bunch of giant sea creatures who they just call Godzilla, I guess.
Okay.
They said he
Got
would
it.
be back. So like this would happen again. So
I am not caught up with my Godzilla lore, so I can't answer any of that.
yeah, well, I actually didn't go back and I've seen Godzilla so many times that I didn't feel the need to rewatch it, but now you're asking questions and I'm like, fuck. Do I know the answer to this? But yeah, so point is that he's back. And
He's back.
pretty much the whole movie, the
was like
plot's
the
not really
Avatar.
important. But they can't defeat him.
Block of
And
ice.
yeah, so in the original film, they actually found a way to defeat him, with using their own weapons against him. But in this
weapon
one,
of mass destruction. That's the important takeaway from that movie, right? Like
Yeah.
it took a weapon of mass destruction in order to destroy this one. But the guy who created that weapon, he died with it in order to prevent humanity from ever getting their hands on it again.
yeah, it's true. So how do you defeat him when you can't do that? Well, they have the brilliant idea of getting King Kong to do the fight for them.
I mean, that wasn't their idea. That was just like, oh shit, like
I'm
we caught King
paraphrasing
Kong.
here, but thank you.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna say it's just like because I don't think. I mean, sure. How does a studio make money? You pit two monsters against
Exactly.
each other. That's
Well, I think this was one of the most successful films of the Godzilla franchise, like ever.
I think it actually is. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
true.
Like when I was looking it up, it said this is the most attended film that ever came out. So people like they were like, "Oh my god, Godzilla's back and he's fighting King Kong." I am so there.
What do you think was the draw? Do you think it was Godzilla or was it that he's fighting King Kong?
Yeah, I wonder, because also by 1962, now there's enough of a gap in between, the devastation. People are kind of getting over it. It's the 60s, right? Things are changing. Japan's back on his feet. And then there's the nostalgia of the characters, Godzilla and King Kong together in like a very fun way, like let's move on with our lives. Let's start having fun kind of a thing. This is very much my read about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think that that's also what sparked the whole, 60s, 70s, and then when it got rebooted in the 80s, craze of these monster movies, is how much fun they were. Also, when you look at films that were happening in the 50s Japan versus 60s Japan, 60s Japan is just like way more fun. And just like they started doing film noir and they started doing mob movies and they started doing all different types of cinema. Instead of just telling like these really profound humanized stories,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I this is just my own venturing of Japanese cinema. This is kind of what I've noticed. So this would be my guesstimation.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Was this your first time watching the movie or had you seen this movie before?
I saw this movie years ago.
Wow. Good for you.
Yeah, because I was like, whoa, I got high. I was like, oh my God, these two guys in these suits are really doing some great choreo here.
I wish I had gotten high to watch this movie. I feel like that would have been the only way to enjoy this movie because this movie is terrible.
It's not very good, no.
It is a terrible, terrible
and
movie.
like, you're really just watching for the fight, which comes all the way kind of at the end.
Yeah, but they do have a little smackdown early in like
they do
halfway through. It's like I mean like little smackdown literally. Like I think like Godzilla smacks him around a bit and walks away.
Yeah. But that's what you came there for, and it's like at that time too, you know that it's not going to be like anything crazy with special effects or anything. It's just going to be two guys in a suit. So it's either you're down for it and you're not. I was down for it. So
for me, it was just like there was so much cutting back to like this newscaster talking about like.
You saw the American version?
Was that the American version? I guess
the people
so.
Dubbed?
Yes,
yeah,
it was
that
dubbed.
was the American version. Yeah.
Okay, so it kept going to a newscaster talking about like the UN. We're gonna go to the moon. We're gonna go talk to. I was just like, I don't care for any of this. Just cut this movie in half. Just give me the fight. I don't need to see this. And I mean, the costume also for King Kong was awful.
He looked terrible.
That was
really
just that was just, and I'm like, I could be forgiving of men in costumes for these like kaiju movies, but this is just a sin upon our eyes.
Yeah. Well, it's weird to think that the same guy who directed Godzilla 1954 directed this film.
Yeah.
But
so he's in his like, I need to make money phase.
Yeah, I need to capitalize off of my biggest hit ever, Godzilla again. And
even the Godzilla costume was whack as hell.
Yeah. Well, that's because it's also, one, it's in color, two, it's very clearly a man in a costume.
Yeah. So here we go. So in black and white, when you're doing like the miniatures, because it's in black and white, your eye can like kind of fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
When you're watching those miniatures in color, you're just like, those are fucking toys. Why? Like, I'm not. There's
no question about it. Yeah.
I felt like Sheryl Crow. This don't impress me much.
Oh, that's Shania Twain.
Tomato. Sorry.
Hopefully Rolando didn't upset any Shania or Cheryl fans out there.
They're out there.
They are out there.
They are going to come at me. Sorry, guys.
But yeah, so all we really care about when we were watching this film is that fight at the end. Did you enjoy the fight at least?
No.
So the only reason
not.
a person would really come to watch this, I mean, it's called King Kong versus Godzilla, right? You know that there is going to be a fight. There's going to be a battle between the two. That's the whole draw. The whole plot that leads up to it is just like such a waste of time.
It really is. Like, we need these berries for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what the berries have anything to do with this. That's why they go to King Kong's island. I don't think it was called Skull Island.
No, it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. They go to his island. They discover, oh my God, look, this is the god that they worship, these natives. Let's take him.
Yeah, maybe he can defeat him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's literally no. Well,
it was called
they wanted
Pharaoh
to take
Island, by the way.
Pharaoh. All right. So do you think it was named after? Wait, there was a Pharaoh character in in the original, right?
It might have been. I'm not sure of. Again, I haven't rewatched it recently, so.
Oh, it was. What's her name? Ann Darrow.
And no. Oh, you're talking about the original King Kong.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, her name was Ann Darrow, so it's not.
Darrow.
No,
Okay, so it's
yeah.
not. All right, I thought it was named after her. All right. The point is, they knock out King Kong and they start traveling with him across
Yeah.
the sea. He
The way
escapes.
They tie him up to the helicopters too is just so absurd.
This movie is. It was just. At a certain point, I'm just like, Jesus Christ! Like, this is.
Yeah.
I can't believe. I had to sit through Godzilla versus King Kong, and I was just like, this is the worst experience ever. And now, here I am, and I'm just like,
Well,
it gets worse.
So for me, I actually I feel the same way, but on the opposite side of the spectrum, where I'm like, oh my god, this is so absurd. This is so stupid. I love it. Right? Like everything that screamed, like, you know, when he would like punch Godzilla and the costume would like jiggle.
Yeah.
You know, like those moments, like when he stuffed the tree down his mouth and stuff. I was like, this is so campy. This is
It
so
was.
delicious.
It was campy. We talked about this last week when I was just like, camp can sometimes be delicious.
It
and stuff.
can,
And
yeah.
I'll say. I mean, I don't know if this was campy because this was just like kind of just like lo-fi, low budget, low. This was just low brow. I didn't find it campy. I think for me, because some of the other Godzilla movies get way campier. For example, when they have the guy who's like a giant man in like a silver suit, right? Like that.
Guy, yeah. I forgot what was his name again.
I don't know.
Damn it.
I don't remember. I wouldn't know. But I remember that fight with Godzilla and him, and I think they were fighting Rodan or something. They were fighting another monster.
Yeah.
But that fight sequence is camp. This was just like kind of just like tragic.
Yeah. I mean, I would not recommend
opinions.
this film. Unless you're a lover of monster movies, you know, you want to watch the franchise, you want to watch them all. You like pretty bad camp. Not like super. Well, I mean, it depends on your definition of super enjoyable camp. But yeah. Overall, I wouldn't really just watch the fight sequence on YouTube.
Do we want to spoil it for our audience?
Yeah, go for it.
King Kong wins.
Yeah. Well, so it's also implied that, especially because he comes back for many more movies, but it's implied that Godzilla just like kind of disappeared, and then King Kong swam off in victory.
Yeah,
so
and the narrator is just like, we know it's a long journey, but we wish you the best, King Kong. It's just like, well,
we dragged you here, but you could swim back.
Yeah.
But yeah, so King Kong does win, but again, I think that Godzilla was just like, I'm gonna go hide until I want to come back, motherfucker.
There are rumors that there's a second cut where Godzilla wins, but these rumors are apparently unfounded and not true. But that's it. So this movie was just not good.
Not good. There's not much to say about it, to be completely honest.
I mean, you know what, guys? If you want to watch it, it's on YouTube. The full edit. I saw it on YouTube, and I was just like, Jesus Christ. The sweet relief came in the endless ads.
Yeah. So, you know, now we're gonna go to our current time period where, you know, everyone's got like a cinematic universe, right? That's like the big thing ever since Marvel started doing it, is that everyone wants to create their own verse. And Legendary decided that they want to have their own monster verse. And really what that is just they rebooted Godzilla. And
are they allowed to call it a monsterverse? Because I thought Universal was trying to do a monsterverse.
Are you talking about like the like Dracula and Frankenstein?
Dracula, Frankenstein. Like they were going to try, and the Mummy.
Is
that referred to? Is that the Dark Verse though?
They had a different name for it.
Is it? Maybe you're right, Eddie. I think you're right. I think it's called the Dark Verse.
Yeah, this is it, according to my resource, it's Monsterverse. Legendary's Monsterverse.
It couldn't be called Kaiju Verse.
No, it's called the Monsterverse.
All right, whatever. It's called the Monsterverse. I don't understand. There's only 2 monsters. How much of a universe can we create?
There's more than
Did you
2
not
monsters.
see Godzilla King of the Monsters?
No, but like Godzilla is the star.
Yeah, but that's also, you know, they start off with Batman, Superman movies, and then they branch off to the other people.
What? So we're gonna get a Mothra movie? I can't wait. I can't wait to see Mothra do nothing.
You don't like Mothra?
I hate Mothra. Mothra's the fucking worst.
Back in 2015, Legendary actually announced that they intended on having a shared cinematic universe between Godzilla and King Kong. So they started with
Godzilla, Bryan Cranston, Aaron Johnson, and
really?
Yep.
None of the same cast is in it. I thought it was a completely different Godzilla thing.
because Aaron Johnson and this girl had no chemistry whatsoever, which was shocking.
Did you see it?
Yes, and
Okay.
let me tell you, guys, here's my unfiltered opinion on the King Kong. How do you kill off your best actor at the end of the first act? You explained that to me, Hollywood, because you have Bryan Cranston in this movie. How dare you kill him off? How dare you? And then I had to watch a whole movie of seeing Aaron Johnson trying to make it from one end of the city to another so he could reach the Olsen sister. No, thank you. All right, and I will also give this complaint. I'm okay with them with Hollywood with this artistic approach of trying to hide your monster, right? And they were trying to do. I think there were some times where it was done effectively, where you're like hiding the action because you're really focusing on the people. The only problem was the people sucked, and I didn't care to see their story. Give me a better story. That's it. And then I would be much more apologetic of like the action sequences and stuff. But like this movie I hated it. I hated it so much. I was so angry when I left the movie theater and I found out that critics loved this movie, and I was just like, you guys are wrong. This is a trick you guys are playing on me.
I'm almost sad we're not talking about that film.
Sorry. Did you not watch it?
No, I haven't seen any of these other films, which, now that I've seen Godzilla versus Kong, I was like, damn. This movie would have probably made a lot more sense had I seen any of these other films.
I mean, probably. I didn't see Skull Island, so.
But you saw Godzilla King of the Monsters, I assume.
I did see King of the Monsters.
Yeah, I remember you seeing that in
Eddie?
theater.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about it. So some of these characters did return, right?
Yeah, 11 from Stranger Things was there.
Kyle Chandler
was also back.
Yeah.
That's it, I think.
That's it?
I
Was
think those are the
Alexander
only two.
Skarsgård, or was he in Kong?
No, he wasn't in either.
Oh, he wasn't in either.
Mm-mm.
Okay. I just assumed everyone was in a film before because of the way
Nope.
that the film introduces them. But
Yeah. I'm pretty sure because Skull Island. I think the main was the Rock in it. I feel like the Rock was in that.
no. Tom Hiddleston was in it.
Okay.
They also had Brie Larson, Samuel Jackson, John Goodman.
This sounds like John Goodman was in it.
John Goodman was in it.
Okay. All right. No, I like I said, I didn't see Skull Island. So
Yeah, I didn't see that either. Yeah. But yeah, so King of the Monsters, right? I'm pretty sure Godzilla was a good guy in that movie. Was he not?
He was a good guy in both movies.
In the original? Like the
In
first reboot?
The first one. Yeah. He was a good guy.
He was a good guy.
He was a good guy. A
Interesting.
misunderstood good guy, but he was a good guy. He was fighting the bad guys.
And you don't know how Kong was portrayed.
I wouldn't know. I didn't care. I honestly had no desire of seeing Skull Island because I was just like, I don't. Because just from the head alone, this wasn't a remake of King Kong. This was more of a reimagining of King Kong. And I was just like, well, if I'm not going to see him run a rampage on the city, I don't want to see this movie.
I mean, well, I also don't care about new versions of Kong. Like I said, I quite enjoyed the original. The 2005 was 3 hours too long.
That movie's so boring. I saw it once and I will never watch it again.
Yeah. And so I was just like, I'm okay. Like I just had no interest in it.
Yeah.
But
same.
so in this film though, if for those of you who have seen the film, it takes takes place 5 years after Godzilla defeated King Ghidorah. Kong is
Sure.
being held in a unit pretty much in a giant dome where they are like, pretty much containing him there.
Okay.
And that's true, right?
Oh, yeah. You're saying that I saw this movie. Yes, this is true.
Uh,
I don't know. I didn't see Skull Island. So I don't know if that's how it ended, but
Yeah.
the Monarch, by the way, who are like the conspiracy group behind like that's trying to contain all these monsters. They discovered, they call them Titans, right? And these Titans,
yes, they call them Titans.
hold balance to the universe or something. That's
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
So,
actually, I've been, describing the
Some-
plots of a lot of these movies. So why don't you kind of just sum up this movie for our listeners?
all right, I'm gonna sum this up for you guys as best as only I can. Godzilla is attacking a production warehouse or something, right? Axis, was that the name of the company?
I think so.
I think that's what it was called. Anyway, the point is that he's attacking. He goes
Apex.
Apex. He attacks his company in Florida, so the Floridians have to suffer not only through COVID but a Godzilla attack. And now the whole world is just like, well, Godzilla's now a bad guy, so what are we gonna do? And I'm gonna go into some spoiler territory here. But meanwhile, Apex is also looking for the source of all these Titan powers, which happens to be in the middle of the Earth, like in the hollow Earth. And so that's where they hire Alexander Skarsgård to go to the middle of the Earth. But how is he going to get there? Well, he needs King Kong to lead the way. Apparently, the way is just going down, though, so I don't know why King Kong, but whatever. King Kong is taken to Antarctica, where he shows up. Oh, look, guys, we just had to go literally down. That's all you guys had to do. Why did you take me from here? And King Kong is discovers that he is like part of a line of like great kings or something of animals his size. And Godzilla ain't feeling that, so Godzilla challenges him to a fight. They have a fight in Hong Kong. Bada bing, bada boom. Here we are. Oh, and now here we go to spoiler alert, guys. All right. So not only do they fight, after they get into a fight, they discover, oh no, we had to work together because we have a common enemy, and that common enemy is in its like debut in this universe, Mechagodzilla.
That's right. Yes, they stumble on them testing for Mechagodzilla. Yes.
And if you think this sounds familiar, that is because if you watched Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, you know damn well that this is the plot of Dawn of Justice. Batman and Superman get into a fight, and they realize, no, wait, why are we fighting each other? We have a common enemy, and that common enemy is Doomsday. So,
yeah.
Yes, and well, yeah, Godzilla and King Kong discover that we have the same shared power. It comes through this source in the middle of the Earth.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this like meme that someone posted, like this Photoshop photo where the two posters for King Kong versus Godzilla, right? Where it's like the hand, you see the hand of one of the creatures, right? And then in the background you see the other one that he's about to fight. So it's like Kong and then Godzilla, or Kong and then one for Godzilla. Someone photoshopped the two of them holding hands, and little did they know that they predicted the movie. I half expected King Kong and Godzilla to make out throughout this whole movie, to be honest.
Yeah, I could see that. Did you enjoy this film?
I enjoyed the fight sequence, I guess.
Really?
It was fine. Oh, I will say what I enjoyed about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
This is never a good sign for a good movie, but I actually thought this movie had excellent sound design. I think if I heard this movie in a movie theater, the sound design was actually spectacular. The way they used silence to great effect because one of the characters was deaf. They didn't do it like in the way where they just do it on a cut. They actually kind of like they like would like bring it in ever so slowly. I think the movie had like really, really interesting sound design, and I appreciated that. Visually, it was just, it was two kaijus fighting each other in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I guess.
In the rain, I think. It was raining too, wasn't it, Eddie?
At one point.
Yeah, you always need the rain, right? Because it makes them shinier.
Yeah.
I learned that in Pacific Rim.
That's true, which is very much an ode to kaiju movies. I feel like the cinematographer, maybe the director, they definitely saw Blade Runner one too many times because I felt like so many people were lit by like neon lighting to the point where
because
just like
it's Hong Kong.
God. Yeah, okay, sure.
That's what Hong Kong looks like if I am to believe anything that Hollywood tells me.
Yeah, seriously. And yeah, the sound design was good. There were a lot of elements about this film that were good. I think that
what else do you think was good?
I think that the way that the director approached the fight sequences was pretty interesting.
Oh, actually, yeah, I'll say that. I agree with you. Like, where I actually did not like the fight sequences for for Transformers, right? I think sometimes they're too messy. I don't know what's happening. All these moving parts. I can't make sense of it. This one, I could see what was happening. I understood who was getting beaten up and who wasn't.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. You definitely had a good sense of the atmosphere there. The soundtrack use, I was like, okay. Didn't really care for it. And I think that I was at a disadvantage not having seen any of the other films because I was just kind of confused for most of the film.
You're like, why is King Kong in this? Like, why is he trapped in this
Yeah.
like hologram?
This is my intro to him. What?
That was an interesting intro to King Kong. Because I too was confused. I'm like, why is he trapped? I don't understand.
Yeah. So I wish I could respond more to this movie because I feel like, with the way that I set up this episode and my relationship with the other characters, I would have a strong opinion, but I kind of don't. I found it to be kind of boring, except for the fight sequences. Now, if you were to ask me, what did you prefer, the 1962 fight sequences or this one, I'm going to have to go with 1962.
Oh.
Because I'm a fan of the camp factor, and I'm more so just a fan of, like, just watching two people fight instead of like all these different angles of CGI and all this stuff. Like, it was impressively done, but also just kind of didn't feel like I was watching a fight.
If given a choice, I would pick neither. You could just kill me. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I'm being really hard on Kong versus Godzilla, or Godzilla versus Kong. I don't know the title of this movie even, but I'm being a little hard on this movie only because the first Godzilla was such a disappointment, and I think I saw, if I remember correctly, I saw Godzilla versus the King of Monsters begrudgingly at Eddie's request. Eddie, correct me if I'm wrong. You wanted to see that movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I had no desire to see that movie because I feel like I was hurt by Godzilla. Godzilla let me down.
I also wanted to see it too because a girl from Stranger Things was in it.
That is not a legitimate excuse to watch a movie, but fine. I agree with you. I wanted to see how she would be in the film. And my God, let me tell you, fine. She's good in Stranger Things and she's a decent actress in these movies, but the writers were really forcing me down this like a family drama that I just didn't care to see in Godzilla. And shockingly, the drama isn't picked up really here in this one, not to the full extent that it was in the first one. But can I just say, like, Kyle Chandler is such a terrible father because his daughter is off on an adventure in Hong Kong. That takes like 2 days. What? Like on the next day, like it's on day 2 when he finally texts like, "Yo, girl, where are you? Godzilla is attacking Hong Kong. By the way, I'm in Hong Kong." And she's like, "Oh my God, me too." What
Yeah,
is the
seriously.
chances?
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't know. I don't understand why American filmmakers or storytellers here are struggling with like trying to make me connect. Like they really work hard and trying to make me connect to the human element of these stories, but they focus too much on a singular family or a singular unit, and that is a hindrance because, especially when I'm rewatching the original ones. Well, specific to Godzilla. Godzilla is not, we're following main characters, but like, who suffers? The world. And we see that world suffer in King Kong. So maybe the Kong element they got right, where I liked the little girl and her connection with King Kong. Did I understand it? No. But, whatever. She's deaf. I get it.
Yeah. No, definitely. I feel like
Wait, what do you get about her?
That she's deaf and like she can communicate with him and
like,
by the way, guys, King Kong can talk apparently. We learned this.
Well, he signs.
No, he also said, "Oh." Don't you remember on the ship?
Yeah, I remember that.
Did I imagine that?
No.
He did say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said
Mhm.
it. I know
Yeah, he
he
said
signed
it.
it, but he also like physically said it. I remember thinking, like, well, why is he talking to a deaf girl? She wouldn't. This makes no sense. That's what I thought at that moment. Anyway, sorry guys.
Yeah.
Nicole, you were saying
No.
something.
It's. I was
going
just
on
gonna
rants.
say. I feel like Titanic was able to like tell a story about a devastation of an event, but like hone it down to a single story and have it connect and stuff.
But they still showed me the other. But they still showed me the suffering.
They did.
Right.
I think Titanic is a good example of that done right, and this is a good example of it just not done right, where it's like too obviously trying to make a connection, and it's like, hey man, I just came here for the fight. It's like kind of you want to know what your audience came here for.
At least they gave you a couple of fights.
They did, yeah, and they were good pace and they were well drawn out, and it was satisfying. But other than that, there were a lot of elements to this movie that I thought were interesting. like the investigative podcast journalists and like
Yeah,
like the conspiracy
podcasters.
and stuff. Yeah,
They're really swarming media because we started watching the Mighty Ducks for the podcast because it's going to be an upcoming episode.
oh, you
And let's
started.
just-
Wow.
Yeah, and let's just say there is a front and center podcaster in this show.
Wow. Okay.
He has,
can't-
he has the best line. He has the best line. He goes, I don't have more of a hockey body. I have more of like a podcast body.
Which is how I feel about me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like it's just
see,
like I don't have a
same.
sports body, but I do have a podcasting body.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch it. But yeah, and then there were also elements of, conspiracy theories and just like all these things that like I was trying, like it's well aware of the fact that right now the world is super into conspiracy theories and like is the government lying to us and, oh, here's the truth that you really want to know about this, and that. So this film really played into that. And it's just like interesting when Hollywood tries to play into those things because it's like, are you trying to poke fun of it? Or are you just trying to
Oh,
Like-
really? That's reading a lot into this. I don't know.
Well, I mean, whenever Hollywood like notices a trend happen in society and then they address it in their movies, I'm always interested in seeing the way that they address it, right?
I mean, I felt like this was a ripoff of Shield and Marvel Universe, right? Like, yeah, there's a secret, but we've always believed there's a secret organization and Men in Black.
Yeah, for sure.
You
Yeah,
know?
well, Hollywood loves secret societies and secret organizations too.
'Cause he
But
was
this
a-
was something the other films didn't have.
Oh,
This is a
the
new,
other,
like
for the-
2021. Yeah.
Fine, maybe this franchise has it because Monarch is like your big conspirator
Monarch,
or
yeah.
something in this
Yeah.
thing. I don't know.
Is it Monarch? No, they're more
Monarch,
like
yeah,
they
Monarch-
deal with more.
Apex, they were against Apex, but Monarch is the company or the branch of government that is monitoring all the Titans. Monarch.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting as all of these elements that they like, oh, how do we tell the Kong and Godzilla story? Oh, well, we got to throw conspiracies in there and big government corporations containing them. So it's interesting how you decide in what way you get to tell these characters' stories in this day and age. And yeah, I guess I just wonder if they're kind of like mocking people for like their overall like obsession with these kind of ideals or not, or if it's just so prevalent today that they couldn't help but like use it as an easy way to tell the story.
I don't know. The reason I just disagree with you is because like it wasn't being told in a way that like so the problem with my flaw with your theory here
Yeah.
is that Q and like the conspiracy that's going on in real world today is actually
QAnon?
like like that would be like the major, that would be like the conspiracy, right, that's going on right now, but that has an actual following. Like this movie made it seem like there was only one person following him, and that was 11 from Stranger Things.
Yeah, well,
You know
that's
what I mean?
also them giving a commentary where like nobody cares about conspiracy theories, nobody believes in you and stuff. I mean, of course, that's the only
Okay.
thing I have to kind of look into because there's not much going on within
That's
the
the
film.
only depth that you were able to pick up in this movie.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I appreciate the filmmaking that happened. Like, there were some shots that it made it almost look like as if there were like cameras attached to the bodies of Godzilla and Kong, so you kind of got like the sense of like a POV and all of this, and just the shots were like not confusing. I could actually follow the fight. That was really nice to see, which is something that I don't see very often. But at the same time, although it is impressive, I'm just watching CGI. I mean, I'd rather watch guys in suits fight, personally.
I would rather
'Cause
watch
at least I'm watching choreography.
No, I see. This is where I am as a watcher. I want a mix of practical and CGI, where you get the best of both worlds. I think you can do someone in a costume,
Absolutely, and that's a
and
nice
then clean it
in
up
between
with
place.
CGI. and
Sure.
stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Not motion capture though, because that's obviously what Hollywood would be thinking. It's just like, yo, we'll give him a guy in a costume. He's just wearing
Yeah.
a green suit. Not
Yeah.
not the same thing, guys. But anyway,
No, I agree.
I
really-
Eddie.
I don't have
I-
much to say about this, so
I'm just curious if Eddie has anything to say about this because I think he only watched the movie because we were coming on the podcast. Did you want to see this movie, Eddie?
I would have seen it. I mean, definitely would have seen it in the way. Like, I would have not gone to the movie theaters to see it, even though my family did, and they really enjoyed it. They saw it in IMAX, and they saw it for the action.
They
Yeah.
paid IMAX money
Yeah,
for
they
this?
saw the action. Yeah,
They enjoyed it at least, right?
yeah, they had fun.
Oh, I will say this. The movie is doing well in the box office.
it is. It's probably the most successful film at this rate. of the
Post-COVID.
year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Post-COVID. I think
Mhm.
that's a big stipulation. But
Did bigger
Uh,
than Dizzy.
What has Disney done?
The
Mulan.
Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh, I thought that was a Disney Plus exclusive. I didn't even know.
No, that was
in
released
theaters?
in theaters. Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. All right. The point is, I don't know. Like this. Do you think this movie was needed, Nicole? That's
Absolutely not. No. I mean, I think that all these different movie studios are trying to have their competing universe worlds to compete with Marvel. You know, like right now, Disney is just killing it. Because they own Star Wars and Marvel and stuff. And
Can't wait for
all
Disney
these
to
other
own King
companies
Kong
are
and
right?
Godzilla.
I heard, yeah, they're bidding hardcore. I think that they're all just like gasping for breath, trying to keep up and stuff. So that's the existence of them. And like all of these new commentaries that they're trying to put into these stories is at the end of the day unneeded, because we don't need you to provide any more commentary about these characters. They were kind of already perfectly established in their original films. Just give us the action. This film gave it to us better than it did maybe the 1962 one. But overall, personally, me, and I'm not the biggest monster movie fan. I have appreciation for the original films. But I was just like, that was fun. Next. So
Next,
no, it
indeed.
wasn't needed. Next, indeed. Yeah.
I'm just
What
thinking
about
right
you?
now of like, I'm just thinking right now of like a Disney-owned theme park ride for like King Kong versus Godzilla. You'd be like on a train or something, and then like,
Yeah.
it'd
Well,
be
isn't
little
there a
mix of, like,
Skull Island ride at Universal?
Is there?
I think so. They brought back
Oh.
a Kong ride, but it's like a Skull Island ride.
Yeah. All right, well, whatever. No, I don't think this movie was needed at all. Nor did I think the first one was needed. So there you go.
Yeah.
I don't need
The
to live
first
in a
one in
world.
the 1962 King Kong versus
Yeah, yeah,
Godzilla. Okay.
I just don't think we need to. I don't need to live in a world where both King Kong and Godzilla exist and are going to duke it out.
Yeah, what a terrifying world. I would be like, holy shit, I don't want to leave my house. I need to go live underground. 'Cause
I
they're
mean,
gonna
I didn't
step
even
on me.
think about that, but yeah, you're right. Like what?
What
Like
a
if you're
terrifying
you're a
existence.
human being, right? You just see a whole city getting like demolished by these two gigantic kaijus, and
Yeah.
just like, all right.
And
well,
like this Godzilla is also fucking way more badass, or at least the way that they depict his, abilities is just like horrifying. But
The
I'm
new
glad that they
Godzilla?
have their, like the 2021 Godzilla, the improved Godzilla. I love that they maintain their, at least Godzilla's original, like cry and his
Oh,
noises.
yeah.
That has remained the same. And the sound design of the character of Godzilla is so perfect.
Sure.
Also, I think the music from the 1954 Godzilla is one of some of the
Oh,
best
that is
movie
a good
music
soundtrack.
ever. It's
Yeah.
so freaking good. So again, for me, hands down, Godzilla's the winner.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this: the only Godzilla I ever liked was a Matthew Broderick movie starring Leon the Professional.
Yeah, with that Puff Daddy song.
Oh my God, the Puff Daddy song! Yes.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Maybe I'll make
Shit.
a montage of these movies to that song.
I wonder. I don't.
It's called
I
Come
don't
With Me.
remember. Huh?
It's called Come With Me.
Come with it. I'm thinking. For some reason, the only song that comes to mind is LL Cool J's song for Deep Blue Sea, and that is not the correct one.
That is not it. No, it's so the "Come With Me" by Puff Daddy was based off of Led Zeppelin's "Kashmir." So
That's it. Yes.
Yeah. So
I remember that music video too. But
yeah,
that is the
me
only
too.
one true. That is my true Godzilla.
Yeah.
And I don't care what anyone says. That is my true Godzilla. That is the only one as far
Yeah.
as I'm concerned. I'm glad I waited
Yeah.
to the end because no one can come at me now.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
no, I don't think this movie was needed. So
No,
that
not
is
at
that.
all. Yeah.
I don't know. Did you guys watch Godzilla? Did you guys enjoy Godzilla versus King Kong?
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys see Skull Island too? And are we just wrong? Like, should we watch it? Or
Yeah,
at least
right?
let me know.
Yeah, please
Let me
share
know.
us your thoughts, guys. You can email us, remakesrebootsrevivals@gmail.com. Hit us up on social media at Instagram at remakesrebootsrevivals, Facebook.com/remakesrebootsrevivals, Twitter at remakes_podcast. And we have a hotline. Rolando, what is that number that they can contact us at?
That's right. We do have a hotline. So call us and leave a voicemail at 862-248-2326. That's 862-248-2326. Leave us a voicemail because we just might play it on the air.
Yep. And until next time,
Stay an
stay an
original.
original.